Out of Deltarune's cast, Susie seems to be the most popular among fans. This is mostly due to her style and personality, but she is also the most normal and easy to understand of our main characters. Others require a little reading between the lines. There are several dialogue options in-game where we can decide what to do and what to say, but Kris is the one who decides how it is said. How detailed a response is, whether or not it is sincere, or in extreme cases, sounds like a completely different voice. Paying attention to little reactions, and having some experts, like Noelle, around can also help us unravel the personality of our protagonist. Kris is a kind-hearted, but self-righteous leader. Also a true prankster, who likes crafts, knives, piano, guns, moss, sweets, Susie and dog treats, but heavily dislikes anime. But what everyone talks about now is the finale of Chapter 2, that ends with creating a new dark world, trapping Susie and Toriel inside, and presumably luring Undyne in. Most people drew the conclusion that Kris is either possessed or a total psycho. In this video, however, I wish to share my theory that maybe neither are true. Maybe behind this action, there is a plan that's not only understandable, but a lot more plausible than you might first think.
So 5 terabytes ago, come inside this digital domain. We can all be heroes in a world of ones and zeros. We'll leave behind the boring and mundane. Don't be the bug in my system, or else we're gonna crash and fall. Yeah, let's go digital. So, the only way to go. Cyberspace is really quite a trip. When you switch your mode to raw binary code, we'll run amok inside a microchip. Don't be the bug in my system, or else we're gonna crash and fall.
In order to make this theory work, we must first prove two things. 1. Kris is not the Roaring Knight. 2. Kris is not a psychopath. The first one is rather easy if we look at the clues. In Chapter 2, we know what happened from morning to the afternoon, so if Kris created the fountain in the library, it must have happened overnight. But once we got to that point, no one but Noelle and Birdly were inside, asleep on the desk with their books laid out before them, meaning they didn't fall in. Someone must have hid in the computer lab, waited for the opportunity, then opened the fountain with them already inside. The game even hints at the possibility that the knight could be an adult. And don't even think about Chara being involved somehow. Toby specifically stated that the canonical ending of Undertale is the one you got for yourself. If the characters at the end of the game were happy, they still are. They would definitely not be happy in a genocide or post-genocide ending, which needs to be canon for Chara's interference. It is also too early to jump to conclusion based solely on the green striped shirt, because Chara has a lighter skin and brown eyes. Unlike Frisk. The second one needs a more detailed explanation. Let's look at the game's mechanics first. If you check your stat menu at the start of Chapter 1, the description reads, "Body contains a human soul, which must be Kris's own soul." That, along with the save file, indicates that by skipping parts of the game, like going to sleep or starting the second chapter in an empty save file, we temporarily release Kris from our control. From this we can piece together a canonical route for the first chapter. Ralsei got the white ribbon, pacifist route, met Alphys and Rudy, but didn't meet Sans and Onion. Also didn't deliver Asgore's flowers to Toriel. This indicates that Kris is interested in building alliance between the Darkners and the Delta Warriors, and talk to specific people with specific goals to those conversations. Another important detail is that at the end of both chapters you can report the Dark World to Officer Undyne. In Chapter 1 Kris is reluctant to give much information, but in Chapter 2 gives a more detailed description. Why would you do this if you don't want the authorities to find out? And if you know they won't believe you, why bother? It's just a waste of breath, especially for someone this reclusive. We'll get back to that later, let's just put it aside for now. The leveling system in the Dark World is different from the one in Undertale and the Light World of Deltarune. In Chapter 1 our main characters are level 1, and in Chapter 2 they start as level 2. But Kris in the Light World is still LV1. After sealing the Cyberworld's fountain, they become level 3. Outside of those instances, Noelle can also level up by either finding the moss or freezing an enemy. So leveling in the Dark World requires special experience, instead of just killing. Kris's guts level also went up from 1 to 2, which is Susie's guts level. Ralsei and Noelle are both at 0. A common theory is that guts symbolizes resisting the player, like constantly disregarding our choices. The attitude change also seems to affect how they enter a battle. In Chapter 1 Kris and Ralsei were just vibing together while Susie tries to act all closed off and cool. Now she is vibing along with Ralsei. Kris on the other hand is no longer vibing, instead swishing into battle fully at the ready. Meanwhile in the Light World there are also some little stories worth listening to. The dogs for example tried to rob the Dreamer residence over the holidays, but Kris chased them off in Kevin style. The game also makes a reference to Super Mario World that Kris and Asriel used to play, dropping Yoshi into the pit. You could say they were controlling Mario to do something bad.
Ironic.
But then we get to the problematic part. When Susie comes up with the idea of bringing Darkners into the Light World, the agreeing option is weirdly enthusiastic. The issue here is that in the instances when Kris gets disgusted of your actions, it isn't clear whether because you are hurting the characters, or Kris is just a psycho who wants all the control without thinking of the consequences. To put it simply, psychopaths are capable of being compassionate, but they are also willing to throw it away, saying that the cause justifies the means. This is why this question was so hard for me to answer. If Kris only does good things, that doesn't get us anywhere. If the blame ultimately lands on the player, that doesn't get us anywhere either. The decisive evidence needs to be either an instance of genuine regret, or self-restriction. And towards the end of Chapter 2, I found it. When Susie meets up with Noelle, Ralsei asks us if we wonder how she's doing. This time you can say no, preventing whatever conversation the two Delta warriors were planning to have. This is where things get interesting. In the normal route, you have to actively refuse it, but in the evil route, Kris is the one who refuses, not allowing the player to enter the room. And in the Spamton Neo fight when he fires up his defensive aura, making it impossible to beat him without help, you finally get to see the truth. Despite how desperate the situation is, Kris still holds on, trying to keep Noelle out of harm's way at all costs. And it is selfless acts like these that psychopaths are incapable of. Back in the normal route, I realized that the Giga Size theme has a unique tune that can also be heard in the beginning of Heartache, a significant portion of Asgore, and the entirety of Burn in Despair. This is the tune that I call the Dreamer Curse, because it is always about trying to overcome an impossible situation, and it is always connected to a member of the Dreamer family. Toriel was desperately trying to keep you in the ruins. Asgore was forcing himself to do something terrible. Frisk was trying to escape Asriel's clutches, and Kris was trying to fight back against Queen to save Noelle. To be honest, I think Kris is somewhere between Garfield and Bruno Bucciarati, a nihilistic prankster on the outside, but a caring leader with massive insecurity and deep concern for the team on the inside. So there must be a third entity, right? Well, for now let's try to think of another possibility. Given the attempt of trying to keep Noelle from putting her life on the line, and how willing Kris is to share information with the police now, indicates that this isn't just a game anymore, and the Delta warriors need help. Toriel might not be the best mom in terms of emotional support, but she can take care of herself, and Kris can fully trust her. She is smart, she is responsible, and if you tried anything weird, she would see right through your disguise. She is the ideal guardian to fall back on, and Undyne is. Well, Undyne. But they need to see proof that the Dark World exists. You can't just invite them to Castle Town, because they would laugh it off, and Susie wouldn't allow it anyway. This move might not be the best idea, but it could bring them all on the same side, and possibly get us a step closer to solving the mystery of the night. I wish to talk more about this in my next video, where we'll be discussing Ralsei's past and Gaster's possible role in the story. But for now I just want to leave one question here. Do you think Bird Lee is jealous of Kris?